All right, Better Every Day podcast listeners, we're back, and I've got a special guest with me today. This is Craig Hysell, and Craig's special to me in the fact that I don't even think he knows this, but before I opened Thunder Valley back in 2013, he was the first affiliate I ever worked out at. So, yeah, so he kind of set the foundation and gave me an idea of what a group class should look like, how it should be ran, and whatnot. So anyway, Craig, good to have you today.
Yeah, wow, Brad. Thanks, man. That was a heck of an intro, and I really appreciate you
Yeah,
inviting me on, man. That was awesome.
no problem. So tell us about you, man. Tell us about your family and what you're up to these days and
Sure,
whatnot.
sure. So I don't want to. I'll make it relatively brief. So I was born in 1975 in Cleveland, Ohio. My first house was a trailer in a trailer park with my folks. And then, my mom was studying to be a nurse and my dad was working for a welding supply company. So we were blue collar. We moved to Cincinnati when I was 8 years old and was raised in a kind of a Catholic school environment. Went to high school at Moeller High School in Cincinnati, which is kind of a well-known sports high school. But I didn't, I played lacrosse when I was there. But my high school life for me was rather different. I didn't really fit anywhere. I sat the bench on the lacrosse team for the most part. I wasn't smart enough to be a nerd. I wasn't creative enough to be in theater. So girls didn't really take much interest in me. I was kind of a late bloomer. So high school was actually kind of challenging. And when I went to college just south of Toledo, Ohio, on Bowling Green State University, and I started to learn what it meant to actually take the reins on your own existence. So I started recreating myself. Instead of feeling sorry for myself through what my perception of high school was, I went back to playing lacrosse. I was, rookie of the year that year for the lacrosse team, and more importantly, the sportsman of the year. So carrying some good virtue, hopefully, to the team. And then later I became captain of the team, and then the only captain of the team my senior year. So that taught me a lot. I joined a fraternity, but I was kind of like anti-fraternity. Like I was the guy in the jeans and flannels and construction boots. Like I was totally grunge back then. And, they were a great group of guys. We did probably, too much dumb stuff than we were doing helpful stuff. But so I learned a lot doing that. And I learned a lot about being cold. So when I graduated college, I decided I didn't want to be cold anymore. Living off Lake Erie in a cornfield, it was minus 50 one day walking to class.
Wow.
I was done. So after college, I moved somewhere sunny, which was Hilton Head, South Carolina, back in 1999, and just really never left. When I got to Hilton Head, I was still, trying to reboot from a Catholic upbringing and a lot of rules. And, maybe almost a decade being a little bit too wild. I started playing rugby. I was bartending, just trying to sort myself out. But I was always working out during all that time. And that was kind of my stability. I was always writing and working out. So I made a couple poor investments during the recession with a lot of my bartending money. And I had a lot of properties. That market imploded. And so I lost everything right at a time when my wife and I were pregnant with our first child.
Wow.
I went bankrupt during the recession. Had no idea what I was doing, was scared, felt really sorry for myself and all this blah, blah stuff. But again, I kept working out and stumbled into CrossFit and decided to start a business on the island during a recession with some meager funds. That whole story. So that was back in 2010. There were about 2,000 CrossFit affiliates in the world back then. So it was really still relatively new. And then ran the gym for almost 9 years. And then during that time, toward the end of my gym experience, I joined the fire service. I always wanted to give back to the community a little bit more. So I joined the fire service in a town called Bluffton, which is right over the bridge from Hilton Head. So now I sold the gym. We sold the gym, my wife and I, back in October of 2018. So now I do firefighting and online training and raising a family. And we just found out that my wife and I are pregnant again.
Wow,
You know,
congratulations.
thanks. We're gonna have an 11-year-old daughter and a brand new baby.
There
So
we go.
we're just rolling right on through. So
Man,
it's
so
cool.
I'm 35 and we just had our second child a year ago. And
Congratulations.
thank you. So we got a 4-year-old and in 5 weeks a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm glad we did this at this age because I can't imagine having a kid later in life. And
Yeah,
here you are.
and here we are 10 years later. And because we had Frankie when my daughter name is Francesca. Frankie, we had her when I was about your age. So but it's amazing where you can find energy, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just, our plans aren't always like, I always say God laughs at your plans, so you kind of just roll with it and do your best.
Right.
I'm grateful for it. Like we're extremely grateful. We didn't think we were ever gonna be able to do this. So
Well, people always say I need to do this and this and this and this before I have a kid, and I always tell them there's no right timing for a kid,
yeah,
and when it happens, you just man up and get to work.
yeah, that's it. And I think honestly, having my child when we had nothing, actually, um, probably saved my life. To be honest with you, so
Hmm.
um, I think CrossFit and having something to live for really kept me from going down into a super dark place that maybe I would not have gotten out of.
That's awesome. That was perfect timing, and I have no doubt it was meant to be that way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess my wife and I, we like to have babies in times when it's just really chaotic in the world. I guess
Yeah,
I don't know.
pandemic. Okay, yeah.
Bankruptcy, recession, pandemic. Well,
There
let's
we go. So I know next time that the world's in chaos again, you're probably pregnant with your third one.
yeah, I think we're done after this.
um, you were bragging about my intro. I don't know if I can. I mean, you just taught me easily right there. And I had about 4 or 5 different times I wanted to interject, but I'm going to save some of those questions for the
Okay.
end. How about
Okay.
that? So, one of the reasons I wanted to, meet up with you and talk and host you on the podcast is because I listened to a podcast you did with Beeve Brody. Is that his name?
Yes, yes.
Of Baby Tactical Gear. So is he the
Tactical
owner of that?
baby gear. Yep, tactical baby gear. So they do like diaper bags for men, and that's pretty cool. He's done created it
What's
from zero. Very
What's
impressive man.
crazy is a member when we were about to have Henry, my 4-year-old, gave me a Baby Tactical Gear
Oh yeah.
front load carrier. So I was familiar with him and his brand. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, one of the things on that podcast is you had spoke about some of the adversity you had experienced in your life, and obviously you just kind of touched base with that in your intro. But is there anything like you maybe want to go dig a little bit deeper into that you just had mentioned that?
Yeah, there is. I think adversity is part of living a full life, and I think a lot of times we are trying to design a life that steers away from adversity, and that's not going to create happiness. To be honest with you, you have to find out who you are, and you can only find that out in times of struggle, or you can find out. I shouldn't say that. You can find out a deep part of who you are that you didn't know you possessed in times of struggle, and I think that's why one of the interesting things for people about CrossFit or working out in general is you're creating this little micro struggle every day. And it doesn't always have to be this massive, like we just had Memorial Day, right? And the Murph workout. And it doesn't always have to be this monumental struggle that we seem to make it become sometimes. It can just be like, what little bit can I do better each day? Just like the title of your podcast is perfect, right? So a little bit better each day. And I remarked in that podcast with Beeve that I owe everything in my life to effort and grit. And to be honest, I think I got excited and maybe misspoke, because I know I also owe a lot in my life to love and gratitude and optimism and patience and to be honest, failure. So if we could go anywhere, with adversity, it's to understand that it's important and to allow it to come into your life and to use it as the opportunities it takes for you to get better and to progress, because progression is actually happiness. Nobody's unhappy when they're progressing unless
Right.
they're progressing toward a goal that they don't want. So I don't want to ever not have adversity in my life. It's nicer when you create your own little micro adversities than having, but and that creation and that physical movement practice where you can honestly create and feel adversity, you're preparing your mind and spirit and emotions for other adversities like recessions or let's say pandemics or whatever comes along just in a normal daily existence, like the sitting in a traffic jam and not getting pissed off,
Right.
like using that time for something better,
Mhm.
calling a family member or listening to a podcast. That sometimes they're opportunities instead of pains in the butt.
Right. So how have you, taken everything that's happened since March and stayed positive, and um, maybe what kind of struggles have you had that you've been able to persevere and, gotten a little bit better?
Right. So for me, I think it was probably slightly different because work wasn't stripped away from me, because I was already either at the fire department where we need to keep going to work, right? Or I was already working from home. So yes, and we had talked a little bit earlier before the podcast started. Yes, I had actually lost a couple clients, but that was okay because they're handling things the way that they need to handle it. And what I think I've learned by watching all this unfold is that we're all going to handle things a little bit differently. That everybody in the beginning is super patient with each other. Everybody in the beginning is usually like, okay, we'll kind of roll with this. And then as it starts to lengthen, then you'll start to see like, hey, what are we doing? How are we managing this? What's most effective? And then that's where you get a little bit of disparity. But I also think, and it's terrible that everybody who has died from this, it's absolutely
Hmm.
terrible. But it also leads me to believe, latest numbers are around 100,000 deaths in the US. And when we look at obesity and cardiovascular deaths, they're 6 times that. And so maybe we can start having larger conversations. Maybe we can start having larger conversations about how do we secure ourselves financially, or were we living too close to the edge, and how we can peel ourselves back. What can we learn from what's important to us, and what can we learn by being forced to stay home, in that, I don't want to have to go to work. Sometimes you think that while you're at work and you're doing a job that maybe it's not that great at that time, and then you go do it, and you want to get actually back out, and you want to get actually back in motion, at least from what I've seen. Um, so, and I've also seen people get a lot more physical. My neighborhood was full of people walking and exercising, and I
Without
had
a
never
doubt.
seen that. I lived in my neighborhood a decade, and I've never seen that many people out moving around and still saying hi. And some people were wearing masks, others weren't. Yeah, everybody's kind of respectful. If you're going to take some positives from that, I think you can look at the grassroots level and find some positives. I think if you look at the maybe a more global or governmental level, you probably have some thoughts there. But if you really want to affect change, you have to cast your vote, I guess, and or get in those jobs where you can actually affect change, instead of
Right.
just, because ranting on social media might make you feel better, but it doesn't really impact true change.
Right. And I don't know if this was the case for you or not, but our kids' daycare closed, and
Hmm.
my wife, she's a nurse practitioner and had to start working from home, and
Mhm.
obviously we closed the facility. So, typically, by the time my wife's getting home at 6 p.m., we're getting the kids ready for bed, eating dinner, and then we're crashing because we got to start the grind again tomorrow. So it was just so nice to reinvest back in the family.
Mhm.
And my wife and I, over the course of the past 4 years, have maybe had 12 to 15 moments where it was just the two of us without kids. And we were getting 2 of those days a week now through COVID. So it was a period where my wife and I really got to remember why we chose each other for the rest of our life, and got to spend some time and just develop our relationship even better. So
So again, to me, that's you don't always get a say, but how you take advantage of what's happening is up to you.
right.
And I think that's really important for people to remember. Like, it's up to you to do with your time what you want. So you
Hmm.
can, and it seems like you guys really kind of peeled back some layers and reinvested. And I mean, how important is that? I think it's priceless.
Yeah. So without knowing, the listener that will hear this eventually, like what are some like basic, standard thought processes or ideas that you have that can help you, get through this COVID?
So I learned a long time ago, and I carry it in the firefighting, and and it's really important, I think. We're called first responders, not first reactors, right? And so your emotional reaction isn't always the best thing for you or for your community or for your family. So learning how to respond instead of react is super, super important, I think, to your mental well-being, to the well-being of those around you, to your health, and to a strong spirit. So what you do in your mind is most important. So it stems from the mind first, and then it goes into every other facet of your being. So for me, paying close attention to what triggers us, what triggers you, and what you're doing with those emotions, how you're maneuvering through them, what you can do with a negative emotion to either, you don't have to quell it, you don't have to push it down, but how can you use it to an advantage? Being choice with your words, being choice with your actions, just being a lot more deliberate, especially in times of crisis, is super important. Firefighters are very deliberate. We train that way, and you can train that way in your movement practice. You can train deliberate action. You can train yourself to talk to yourself appropriately. It's very important. It's a lot of the underlying layers to fitness that are super important that we don't always talk about. It's not your best time or your physical PR. It's those mental and spiritual PRs that I think really carry on outside the gym, which is why we do what we do, not just from a physical health standpoint, but from a wellness standpoint.
Right.
And I don't know. I think that's if I could take away anything, if I could have anybody kind of reflect on anything, that's what I would hope people can engage with and practice.
That's awesome stuff. Thanks, Craig.
Mm.
Let's talk about your online program, Wellness Groove. Tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So when I quit the gym, if you've ever done like a strengths test, there's a Clifton Strengths Finder test. It's interesting in two ways. One, it tells you what your strengths are, going off a battery of questions. Two, you have to be it can be eye-opening, and you also have to be aware as a responsible individual that you don't want to fall into these labels, and are these labels also true? So there's like a paradox to the whole thing. But part of what this Clifton Strengths Finder gave me was the fact that understanding myself a little bit more, and I always need something to do. I always need a mission. I'm a mission-based person. So when we sold the gym, I thought taking a break was going to be a good idea, and actually I was miserable. So I created a different program that I wanted to kind of build, an online program for first it was for leaders, and I had a workout program, and it was just too much, and I didn't market it properly. It was a failure, but I learned from it. And then the staples were kind of there, and we learned that at our gym, people could be fit but not well. We had some really fit people that just had a whole host of emotional and mental and spiritual issues that just, it wasn't depressing, but it was like, oh man, we need to help these folks kind of find out how to just not be more fit, but how to embrace who they are and be better all the way around. And so my wife and I started this thing called Wellness Groove. And so we talk about some more of the principles. And then that's how we have workout programs that people can find. My wife sells doTERRA products. So we're kind of big into plant-based medicine and vitamins and such. So we kind of just combined forces there. And we've been enjoying it. Again, working with your spouse is always interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly it can be challenging sometimes, but wellnessgroove.net. So there's a bunch of blog posts up there, and we do free phone calls, and we get on the Facebook, or excuse me, not just Facebook, but we get on Zoom and meet face to face with people and all kinds of stuff. It's interesting. It's growing. So that's, yeah.
So is it more of a personal development program versus a workout regimen?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like how would that pie chart
Because,
breakdown percentage wise.
yeah, because I don't think you can necessarily split the two. I think part of personal development is moving, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So yeah, I would qualify it more as a personal development, more as a, you know, you get the, Brad, as we keep going, you know, all these terms get kind of, you know, what's that mean to somebody? What's life coaching mean to somebody? What's a tribe mean to somebody? You know, everything that when I've been going through this CrossFit process since 2010, I was an early adopter for a lot of this stuff. And then you you watch it grow, and then it gets twisted into this kind of homogenous, generalized thing that people think they know what it means. And you fight that, you fight those battles to some extent. And I guess yes, I would say it's personal development, but I don't know how people qualify that. And I know movement is a part of that. I would say if we're talking about anything, it's 30% movement. Let's say 30% what you're feeding your body, both mentally and physically, and then 30%, you know, spirituality and mindset. And that spiritual, I don't mean religion. That certainly plays a role, but I mean how you're processing your faith and values to the world. I think that's how you internalize that and how you give it back. I think that's more what we mean by spirituality.
Okay. So, like with your clients that you're working with Wellness Groove, are you kind of recommended CrossFit type programming with them, or could my mom who's 62 do this and, you know, not feel the pressure of knowing that you're a former CrossFit gym owner?
Yeah.
So,
So, man, that's a great question. So CrossFit, I still think CrossFit's amazing. Um, if the community works for you, and the methodology of the CrossFit gym works for you, and the classes, the times for the classes work for you, then I think CrossFit is absolutely wonderful. And I think most people get out way too cheap for what it actually gives you. I think most CrossFit gyms should charge double for what they offer you, in terms of a more well-rounded life and a circle of friends and a community that you can rely on. So when we owned the gym, we realized a lot of time that you know, the class time didn't work, or the fitness style didn't work. And with our approach in the Wellness Groove, if we do mostly personal approaches, so we can tailor that to whoever we want for whatever they want. And that's where I want to meet people. But I'm limited. You know, when I do that, we have a group programming coming out just for dads, but everything has its limits. With a personal training style, I only have so much time, right?
mm-hmm.
And somebody else only has so much money they're willing to spend on their investment. So where you got to meet that, you just have to start somewhere, whether as a business owner or as a human being who wants to start fit. You have to start somewhere and then kind of let it evolve as you want. You can't think you know what's best for you and then keep waiting for that moment. I think you just have to begin, and then you figure that out.
Yep.
So so yeah, basically, hopefully to answer your question, you know, I teach, one of my clients wants to be a bodybuilder, so he does bodybuilding style workouts. One of my clients fights arthritis, you know, and so the way he works out is monumentally different from the way the bodybuilding client works out. So it's all about, after I've been doing this for almost 15 years, after doing it for that long, you start to learn how to manipulate these paradigms to meet people where they are, so you can get them where they want to go.
Yeah, I get it. It's awesome. So basically anybody could work with you. That's what you're saying.
Anybody who is committed. What I've realized doing this is, if you aren't committed, then we might as well not train and call it, and that's okay. You know, if you do have, if you're willing to be consistent, then yes. If you're not, then you're just not ready, or you need something else. I'm not the Wellness Group isn't the right thing for you, and that's fine.
Gotcha. Well, Craig, I'm appreciative of your time today. I don't want to keep you too long, but I did want to do kind of a lightning round of questions for you. It's something just
Okay.
switch it up a little bit fun. So, and some of these go back to your intro a while ago, but what was your first CrossFit workout that made you fall in love with the CrossFit programming methodology? How
I
did you
can't
get
remember.
humbled, basically?
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but exactly. But it was like, so I was doing it back in like '08 in like a Globo gym setting, right? When nobody was doing this stuff. And it was some kind of like, I believe it was like a hang clean and like pull-ups or something. And I didn't know what a hang clean was. I didn't know what I was doing, and the bars don't spin,
But
nothing.
you watched the video on the HQ website, so you're good.
Yeah, I don't even know if I did that, but I stumbled into CrossFit, and it was something listed so simple. I was like, I can't work. And then I went back a couple months later, and I did it because I wasn't performing on the rugby pitch the way I wanted, and I did this like 7 to 10 minute workout. I can't remember exactly what it was, but then I threw up, and I was like, literally, my body was in shock. I remember shaking and hurling, and I remember, oh, okay, I'm in. Like, this is amazing. I need to learn more. So yeah, I don't necessarily remember what it was, but I remember it was short and made me puke.
That's awesome. My first workout ever was a treadmill Murph with strict pull-ups.
Oh man.
It was awful. It took me like an hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah, just eat the
Um,
whole thing right up front.
there you go. Um, so I remember seeing this article from all these fitness professionals. This is 10 years ago, and they all voted for 3 exercises they could do the rest of their life, and they're limited to these 3 movements.
Mhm.
What would your 3 be?
Yep. I would choose. I used to say. So my old answer used to say back squats, pull ups, and sprints. And now at a 45-year-old uh, man, I think I would choose sprints, pull ups, and push ups. I think I would choose that.
Going all body weight.
Yeah. I love to lift weights. I do, but if I'm going to have longevity, um, and I'm going to be able to do anything anywhere simply, I'm starting to realize, like, I love dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells. Like, I'm in love with them. I love them. But to rely solely on myself wherever I am all the time, those 3 movements, they'll get you strong and they'll keep you fit.
There you go. Give me 2 random facts about you that 95% of people don't know.
um, Facts about me that most people don't know. I have crazy skinny legs that I'm pretty self-conscious about, and I really enjoy sipping on like a thimbleful of good whiskey, like once or twice a month. Like, I just super enjoy that. I don't know why. I haven't been drunk in forever. I don't know,
That's
but
funny.
I think if you looked at me, though, maybe that chicken leg is a fact that you can readily understand. I don't know.
Well, I'm the same way. There's not a day that goes by at the gym that my legs don't get made fun of.
Yeah, I'm with you,
And
man.
I've done the hatch squat cycle numerous times.
Yeah,
And all it does is make my butt bigger, but my legs still look so skinny.
I'm with you. My butt grows, but my calves, my thigh, nothing. Just genetically, I'm not set up for that, I guess.
Uh, so do you use any kind of fitness technology? And if so, which one's your favorite?
Do you mean like a watch or anything like
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
How do,
So,
do you like measure any metrics when it comes to fitness?
oh man, I used to be all about metrics until I realized that after a while of measuring them so much, you realize that you don't need them so much. You can just start to, what you're feeling. And so I love going back into metrics now and then, but I don't live there anymore. Like, my watch, I just has a timer on it.
Hmm.
Um, I don't really lift with the belts or knee wraps or anymore. I'll use straps and chalk every now and then. But in terms of gadgetry, I guess, or tech, um, I try to get outside as much as possible. I realized when I sold the gym how much I really enjoyed being outside. And when you own the gym, you're not outside.
Hmm.
So yeah, I kind of go. There's a great book by Brian McKenzie and Andy Galpin called Unplugged, and I drift. The older I get, I seem to drift more toward that.
Okay, good deal.
Yep.
What are some of the funniest moments that you remember while owning a CrossFit gym? This could be you, it could be a member, like, I don't know, anything.
Again, like specifics, I don't
Like,
know.
for example, we have this this member who one time someone was like, we were testing a 1 rep max back squat, and this other member was kind of struggling to get out of the hole, and for some reason he felt like he was in danger even though he wasn't. He actually had upward momentum, and he went and pushed him from the front and like threw the
Oh,
barbell like 20 feet behind his head.
oh my gosh. You know, we did so many things over the years. We had, you know, we would throw kegs. We would, for exercise, we always like to party and give back too. We would always create charity events and then get together afterwards. So we'd raise money and then, you know, drink beer and eat together. We always, with all of the effort and sweat and sometimes tears that were going in there, I always remember, and maybe this is just me biased, I always remember genuine happiness. I always remember giggles. I always remember when we were a younger gym, just stupidity. Like we did a thing for Movember, right? And so we all grew terrible mustaches, and then we did like a competition at the end where we were doing like just in-house competition where we were doing, you know, 1 rep max squats, and our significant others got to shave us because they were so sick of the way we looked. And
That's awesome.
we did this one. It was a beer chug and a 400-meter run, and one of our faster guys, we had to handicap him, so he had to chug 2 beers. And he's also very good at chugging beer. So he chugged 2 beers to my 1. I no longer had those skills, and he was a great runner. And so I was behind him, and halfway through the run, he just turned and, without stopping running, hurled all that beer out, and I got hit with all the foam and everything. I'm like, this is what I get for making this a dumb event. But I remember we used to run big events, like we had the ICANN games when running big fitness competitions was still relatively new outside of CrossFit. And man, we had just a lot of fun, and there was a lot of hardship in there too. But
Yeah, that was exactly what I was looking for right there.
okay, I'm glad I could answer it. Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny moment. It was like the second or third time I came in, and this is when you were still at CrossFit Hilton Head.
Yeah.
You weren't at Conviction Training Facility yet. And I walked back in. You're like, "Hey, man, it's good to see you again." You're like, "Since you were here last, we got more holes in the wall." And I was like, you didn't like further explain or anything. You're just like, I'm like, okay, there's holes in the wall now.
Yeah. Our old gym got so tore up, man. So tore up. We were just
How do holes get in the wall? Is that like handstand push
yeah,
ups?
we weren't ready for all that, and some people would throw med balls into it, and you know, we just we weren't outfitted for all that, so it just started looking like we were just playing baseball inside the gym.
That's funny. I got 3 more questions for you. Okay. What are your proudest moments as a gym owner?
Doing it all with a family, a young family, watching people use the gym to create relationships that are gonna last the rest of their lives. You know, I got to marry people. I got to marry quite a few people.
That's the story with my wife. She was a member.
Oh,
Our 7th member ever, and I risked, 12% of our membership base. So
those things, helping people through some of the hardest times they were having in their life, kind of being that institution, that rock for them during that time. Those are the things that I'll never forget. And those watching somebody work really hard for a personal best and watching them light up when they get it, and then knowing that if they could see with work and effort and focus that they could get that, knowing what that does for their confidence outside the gym, those are the most those are the proudest times. Those are the most magical times for me. Just the people, what I learned from the people, what they taught me. They taught me way more than I ever taught them. And I know that sounds like lip service and cheesy, but that's the truth. They made me a better person. So, and I loved our staff, even the ones that left angry. You know,
Yeah.
I loved them all.
I'm right there with you, man.
Yeah.
You know, we don't make a ton of money running a CrossFit gym, but you know, the quality of life and the way you see that you're impacting people's lives,
Mm-hmm.
it's priceless.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, since I've known you, and I've never asked you this one, I've always seen you promote free hugs. Explain
Yeah.
that to me.
So Free Hugs was born from, I used to be really scared of people. And in my younger days, coming out of high school and possessing a lot of anger, to be honest, Brad, I got in a lot of fights. Like a lot of fist fights throughout the years. And it's not necessarily, Free Hugs aren't about making up for any of that or redemption or penance. To me, it's just about being more open to other human beings and understanding. Through the gym, I understood the power of being there for people, and the power of touch and the power of openness. And a free hug is a risk for me, and it makes me less fearful of others, and it creates more openness and gratitude in my life. So yeah, when I first signed anything off hugs, I was so mortally terrified of how I would get made fun of and what that would mean. And now people gratefully associate me with a free hug, and has profound positive impact on my life.
That's awesome. I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Great story, though. All right, last question. I want to ask you about that board behind you.
Yeah.
And thought process behind that.
Yeah. You want to read it to people?
Yeah, it says, stop finding yourself and start creating yourself.
Yeah. So this is my little, I call it my reminder board behind me. So it's just a small chalkboard for people that can't see it. I don't know if this is going to be on video or not, but so I write little reminders down, little notes for me. And forever, I was trying to find out who I was. And in that process of finding out who I was, I started to realize that more and more, while that is important, the most important thing is what you do with that information. And that then becomes creating yourself. You, at some point in your life, no matter what has happened to you or how you were raised, your life becomes your responsibility. And once you understand that, it's very empowering, and it's also very scary, and it can create a lot of mixed emotions. But I feel when people take ownership of who they are and where they want to go, and actually let that be free, I think that's when people find happiness. And I'm still getting there. It takes, it's every day, managing a lot of emotions and stuff. But I think if more people got invested in not just finding out who they are, but how to create themselves, I think people can get a little bit better every day, like what you're after, in a truly actionable fashion. And that's what creates happiness.
Dude, that's awesome. Craig, thank you for your time, man.
Thank you. It's an honor.
It's been years since we've been in touch, outside, the occasional, DM on Instagram or whatnot. But, you've played a huge role from far away in my life. Like I said, first CrossFit gym I ever dropped into, and just seeing you afar and just seeing what you've done with rebranding a gym. We've done the same thing.
Yep.
It's important that we're always on point, because people are watching, even if it is from a distance, 7 hours away. So thank you for everything you've done to impact my life, and for this 45 minutes today. So
thank you very much. I appreciate being here.
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening, and we will catch up with you next week.